Right, thanks for coming in, guys. So I guess the reason we're here today is like we've all had experiences in some way of suicide or suicidal thoughts. And I think that it's very rare that a man talks about suicide, and I think it's even rarer that more than one man gets together and they have a conversation about it. And I think it's a topic and even a word that is quite scary still, and people don't know how to talk about it, and they sidestep it. Even in like the media, it's kind of awkwardly avoided when it's been reported on. So I think we kind of said, like, let's just get together and have like, an honest, frank chat about suicide as men and our experiences, which I don't think we see enough. So I guess like to start, if you could both, whoever wants to go first, just give like a brief kind of overview or summary of your experience or why you're here. I know you two kind of met through that as well. So
yeah, we did a few weeks ago, hasn't it?
Yeah,
had a few beers.
A couple.
So I guess I start. I'm a 38-year-old man now, and at the age of 16, I lost my brother to suicide, who was 18. So at that time at school, I was very loud, running around, playing a lot of sports. I was very vocal, very social, and then that happened, and then from that day, for a few years, I found it very hard to socialise, very hard to communicate. Eye contact was quite hard, but it's fair to say it completely fractured my world and rocked me. And as it was so many years ago now, suicide it's spoken about more these days, but back when that happened, it wasn't known as much, I think. So especially in our school, where me and my brother were very social, for this to happen, people didn't know how to deal with me or talk to me. Apart from a teacher, Mr. Worthington was amazing. He helped me, and obviously friends and family. But the mass majority of people didn't know what this was or why, or I didn't know, and I didn't know why he'd done it. If I could have helped. So all these feelings and thoughts come through, and this was like very turbulent time. I didn't know what to do with myself or where to go. So I didn't know if I could have helped my brother or if my brother could have spoken to someone. And as we know nowadays, there are certain charities and yourself, Sanctus, who are helping people talk about their feelings. Whereas I feel at that time, my brother didn't know, and I didn't know about anybody or how to speak to him. So I think first of all, it's great to see what you guys are doing, and like it's fantastic. And I mean, I don't want to go into that, but if we had more back then, maybe things would be different. But maybe not. Maybe I don't know. But it's not good to think like that. But hey, but the thing is, at that time there wasn't much to talk about. So it was a very hard time for me, and I went on a bit of a journey trying to learn out why he did what he did, which I still will never know. So I've made peace with that. But to find out who I was as well, because what happens when I think a close loved one, especially at that age, I think I lost. He was my like brother, best friend, and dad, sort of all in one, and it was part of me that was lost. So it was very hard to know who I was, and I was trying to find out where I was going in my life as well. So I was very lucky to have a very close mother and sister to talk to express, and very, very good close friends that allowed me to talk. And now I talk quite a lot. I mean, it's good. Like, I speak to people and I say, if something's inside you, you need to talk about it, you need to let it out, you need to release it. Because, like, although my brother did talk, I couldn't give him the answers. So I guess I'm sort of on a journey myself, trying to help people understand what they're thinking. Because the therapy I've been doing lately is all to do with me wanting to save people or help people. Or understand if they're down, why they're down, and make sure I understand that. This is something that I guess will never change for me, and this is something that has happened in that structure. But it's that moment that it's completely changed who I am, who I could have been or would have been. But actually, I like to turn things onto a positive, and due to the tragedy, I think it's turned me into a more positive, motivated person and caring as well. So. You can, out of a tragedy, you can turn things into more positive things, which I'm still trying to do. But yeah, the journey is long and painful, but I'll never forget what happened, but it has sculpted me into the person I am now. And I guess saying about how we look at this in society and how I think people are still very, I guess, cagey about talking about it, because they think if they talk about it that someone might have an idea about it, or maybe that's one thing, or they don't want to talk about it because actually they might be thinking about it. They might be thinking, oh, well, actually now I need to talk about my feelings and be vulnerable and open. But that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And having things like this, what we're doing, and your company is helping people to talk about these emotions, realise that everybody has these emotions. Everybody. Whereas my brother didn't have someone to understand that. He thought it was all in his own head. And he thought he was going on a crazy world and thought the only way out was what he did. But we need people to talk and realise that it's fine. It's fine to be vulnerable.
And when you started to talk about it, like immediately after, like how was that kind of received? Like how were people with you?
So immediately after, with friends, they just kept me close. They just looked after me, and I didn't talk a lot, to be honest. I became a bit of a mute. It was only when the teacher, Mr. Wilson, took me back to school, I spoke to my close friends, but I just sat. I was just taken out by my friends and just sat in the corner. I just sat. I didn't know who I was. I'd lost everything, sort of thing. And people were just taking care of me. People taking care of me. I should have seen a therapist then, I believe, but I shied away from it because I didn't want to express. But moving from day to day, each day, you start to learn that I need to talk about this. I need to let out. My way of doing that was speaking to my friends, going travelling, and opening up to anyone really, and just making me realise that I just spoke to this guy. He's actually thinking the same thing I'm thinking.
I think that's one of the things when we met, which I've been kind of learning, because my experience, it's like a bizarre parallel in some ways to Clark, because my experience with it is from probably a different angle. When I was 20, so not too much older than Clark, I'd hit a pretty bad point and attempted to take my life. It didn't feel fortunate at the time, but now I'm pretty stoked that I didn't quite stick the landing on it. But at 20, it's insane to think, but my perspective on it was that short term it was going to suck for people. Now, when it comes to suicide, it is, from my perspective and my view on it, is that the act of it it's inescapably is a selfish thing to do, but kind of long term you perceive it like it would be better for people. But like since meeting Clark and understanding more about how fractious it's been and just how long term these impacts are, it's been really interesting to kind of actually appreciate and see just how wrong that thought process and that understanding of myself, of reality, was at that point. But once again, like as a guy, like who'd you speak to about it? Unless you've got a fella like Clarky, you don't mind a chinwag, do you? You know, it's there's not many people out there to really talk to, and sometimes you don't want to talk to a person on a shrink on a couch. You know.
Yeah, it's hard. I think I didn't tell anyone when I was going through. I was similar to you. I was like 2021, and I was the same. And actually, it's interesting having you here today because I didn't even, when I was going through it, I didn't even think about the effect it would have on my family, really. Like my brain was so foggy and so cloudy that I couldn't see out. And I think looking back now, I feel kind of guilty because I was like, what about my mum?
Yeah.
And then at the time, it didn't even like come into my head. I just felt that I'd be better off, or the world would be better off without me here.
They say, like you mentioned about the people say that's selfish act. And then I went through that thinking, was that selfish for my brother? He's left me in this pain. But it wasn't. It's the most selfless act. He's in pain. He feels felt that was the only way out. And actually, to save us from us looking after him, he thought. And that's it.
It's that thing of just, with everything, it's a matter of perspective. And it's like you wouldn't judge a man for jumping out of a burning building, right? So that is what that person's experiencing. It's that level of fear, terror, sadness, these incredibly crippling emotions. Oh, that's wrong. That was my experience of it, and you wouldn't judge them from that perspective. But of course, everyone else is kind of looking at it and can perceive so many other solutions, which at that point I certainly couldn't. Yeah.
And it's so hard to say to a friend or family member, here's what I'm thinking right now. Like even now, 4 years on, I don't think I've ever had this conversation with my family. Like they see me, they know I work at Sanctus, they see me write and they see me give talks about, like talking about suicide, but we've never sat down and said, here's the bit about suicide. It's like, I can even like in my head now imagining me going to talk to my mum about it, and I feel awkward because it's still such a hard thing to talk about. At the time, saying to someone, do you know what, I think I want to do this. Yeah. Like, that's such a hard conversation to have with anyone, especially
by saying it, you may feel that you're bringing that emotion to the surface, but bringing that emotion to the surface is actually then bringing the light in to help you deal with it. And touching on that subject as well about sort of other people talking to men. Obviously, we're speaking to mother. That's a different. It is hard to speak to your family for certain reasons, but as friends, as a friend circle, I think there's a culture that men against men. If you say something, you're weak, and if that person doesn't give you back something that they're upset about, they've kind of got a one on you. And although that's like not received or done, it can be felt like that in society. And that's if the other man or doesn't kind of help or come back and say, you know, I have these things as well. That person's worried to say something to that person because they feel if I share myself, then I'm kind of looking like weaker. So I think I always advocate if someone's talking to me, I would just say, well, you know what I do? I hear some voices. See some weird stuff, man. We all do. We all hear stuff. If we don't keep our brain active, everybody has these things. It might be different to you, but I've got it as well. It's like, and that makes that person feel on a level.
Met, basically.
Does it ever feel like you when you've got to have that conversation? You know, when you fancy a girl, like take it back to like early days at school. You've got a crush on a girl, and you're building up to tell her that you fancy her. It's almost like a very different subject matter with very similar anxiety. It makes you feel incredibly vulnerable, and fundamentally, you kind of fear maybe rejection, because suicide, being as scary as it is, my view on it is that we would be in a much better place, specifically as men, if we were able to voice that as a thought, that as a feeling. My experience has opened me up to get someone else's perspective, figure out some of the solutions. Turns out they were better than killing myself, right? Good, that's progress. However, what other experiences I have had is when you do that with somebody, that they get real uncomfortable. People feel really uneasy. People feel scared. I think that's understandable. And then it's like, so what do we do? And then typically you might find people giving maybe not awesome advice. Like, have you ever considered Samaritans? I'm like, yeah, my guy, like, I'm good. Like, that's probably not what I'm in the market for. I just want you to listen to me and figure things out. But I feel that it's part of, we're very fortunate in the sense of two guys who can have a beer, chat about sport, chat about girls, chat about our feelings. But I find like that last bit a bit more of a barrier to find somebody who you can connect with on that basis.
On a level, we chat. I've had this thought today. I did that. That's why that is. And I get a new perspective on this. This is good. Keeping things in a social circumstance is only just going to fester and create toxic feeling. Then it's going to grow inside you, and you're just going to start feeling lonely, and that's not good. But people just. It is still a stigma that, I can't tell them that. I can't say to them, I'm feeling like this, because they feel that will just weaken them. But really, it's strengthening you, like, to say that. And I think like my friend circles are getting better, and everyone's getting better. I feel what everyone's doing is, but there's still obviously people struggling.
Yeah, because my view maybe differs a bit from that, but only in the sense that. My experience has been that we're getting like way better at talking about feelings and mental health. I would say that. I feel there's been some amazing shifts and changes with it, but I still feel the conversation specifically when it comes onto the subject of suicide, due to the practical nature, because it's pretty awful, right? It's pretty hard. pretty hard chat to have. I still feel there is like a hesitancy, a resistance, and sometimes a real fear about talking about the elephant in the room, like really getting into the nuts and bolts of it.
I think it's such a hard thing to talk about. I think it's one of those things that you, unless you've had experience of it in some way, you just don't get it. Like I remember when I was young, when I was still going to school, and trains would be delayed or cancelled on the way home because someone had taken their own life in front of the train.
Yeah.
And I remember my thought process so clearly. I was like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
I was like, firstly, like, so selfish doing it at a busy train station. Now I can't get home. Secondly, why why would you do that? Like life's amazing. Like, why to get to that point? I remember that was my thought process, and it was so. When I was young, but still naive and quite ignorant, and actually there was no way I could understand that. No matter how well someone articulated it to me, I couldn't get it. And then I think actually it was only then, having gone through it, that I'm like, right, shit, now I get how someone gets to that place, and only now I can talk about it. So I think you get the media who often don't even use the word suicide, and I think it's just I think people don't know how to talk about it. People don't know how to listen to it.
It's become a scary word, and I think like hearing you say then about hearing people jumping at the train and didn't realise it, and then when you've gone through it, your brain starts to analyse this, and it's like I've gone over it many times in my head, and it's a moment. I mean, it's obviously a long period of time to get to it, but it's a moment that I realised my brother had. It's that moment he went, that's it. The day before, he went and seen my uncle, and my uncle was like, he was so happy. He was like, everything's going to be great, because he worried, he was down. He said, everything's going to be great tomorrow. Smiling, come, and I was the last person to see him. He came home from school, and he hugged Barry, his mate, came in like, he decided, it was a moment he flicked. If someone had spoken to him in that moment, and said, this is just a moment, this is not going to continue, then he would have gone out of that. And I feel people now who take their own lives, there's just a moment where someone calls them, or if they have an opening or a chance to just express this, they'll be like, this is wrong. Because I have had after it things telling me to swerve off the road, to take my own life. I've had that, and I've had to shout at that voice and say, no, like, I'm not doing that, because I know what it can be, and I know that right then I need to call my mom, I need to do something, I need to pull over, I need to get out of this situation. Someone who hasn't gone through it, understands it, would just allow that to continue in their brain. So I feel that with getting what we're doing and trying to get people to talk about it is such a valid thing, because people know, be aware of people aren't aware either. There's like triggers, and there's points like, oh, maybe you hurt your ankle or your back, you're off work for a week. Oh, I'll be alright, watch telly. No, you're watching telly, things happen, you don't eat right, you start getting down, maybe your girlfriend, you're not training, it's a bit like what you're doing, you're like, oh, you're not making money. These are the trigger points. If you don't notice it, you're in it. And then before you know it, you're like, you don't even know it, it's taken over you. So people, I think, have to be aware of these trigger points as well, and talk at that point. Say, I'm not feeling good, let's talk about it now before it gets into these.
It's not always a one long sustained period. Like, like even now, like I don't have thoughts like that anymore. But some days I wake up and I'm like, I'm not feeling today, or something shit happens in your life, and you're just like, I can't be bothered with life. But I'm not suicidal, but those thoughts come in occasionally, and I think it's like you say, it can be fleeting moments, but when you're really suffering, that they're amplified.
Absolutely. I equally, as three blokes from the work we do at Sanctus, I know from the things that we talked about with like the therapy that you do, and amazing things. Kind of from my experience was, or is, that if I do some specific things really consistently, I typically don't get to that point. But I equally understand within myself that if I don't take some tablets, I appreciate everyone does different things, but I take antidepressants, don't take my pills, so my brain can produce serotonin, lovely stuff. I do therapy, I did that this morning, had a chin wag with him this morning, that was helpful, and have a kind of more open and honest kind of friendships with people around me. Oh man, I'll probably struggle,
I think we're lucky is the word, but we're talking in a position now of we've been through it, or we've been there or whatever. So we actually rationally can say, here's what's good for me, here's what's not. If I do X, Y, and Z, I'm probably going to feel like this. I think what's hard is it's for the people that it hits first time and they're not ready for that. Like I spent my whole, like the first 20 years of my life telling myself I'm a happy guy, I'm a confident guy, I like to make jokes, I've got friends. I was like, there's no way those things can amount to me ever getting suicidal. So when I did start getting suicidal thoughts, it hit me like an absolute freight train, because I built up this story of the kind of man that I was, this like, funny, strong man that everyone likes. Like, I'd never get to that point. So when I did, I was like, is the whole person I've been telling myself I am for the last 20 years not real? And I think what was even harder is you kind of like, you build up these like images or fantasies in your head of what your life's going to turn out to look like, where you're going to live, who you're going to marry, what kind of job you're going to have, how many dogs you're going to have, and then suddenly, four dogs now, more dogs than kids. And then suddenly, like almost out of nowhere, these thoughts come in, and the very thing that kind of gave you those fantasies, your mind starts giving you these suicidal thoughts, and it tears down this image that you've built for yourself for your whole life, and then suddenly you're left in like a am I not going to be here next year? That was the hardest thing to deal with.
This is like a pre-proposed fantasy that society has like maybe created, that you felt that you need to fit in with, and I feel like the suicidal thoughts after looking into and basically, like, I think it hits at different ages in different ways, and I feel coming to 38, I know I've seen a lot of my friends posting now on Facebook, I have mental health issues, I need some help from someone. I feel that's the point of, they're getting to 40, they haven't succeeded in where they wanted to be succeeded, and maybe that's a man thing, we need to be this. And maybe at your time, you were like, I need to be this, I'm going to be here, and then actually maybe you didn't, but you've had a fantasy that society has pushed onto you, I've got to be that, and suddenly it's not there, and you start to doubt yourself. But really, that's all or nothing. It's you, how you are in yourself. And that's, I think, going into that probably made you realise that I don't need to be, I'm going to be happy with who I am, where I'm going, and when I am myself, then that's when I'm happy. All this thing that I'm trying to be is just creating me and making me feel the way I am.
But man, because I guess that what life, especially at a younger age, is possibility, right? And then suddenly, I find it interesting, and I'd love to be able to understand why specifically men from like early 20s up to 40s. I think that's interesting, because that's where the dreams, your hopes, the possibility of what you can be gets its first kind of challenge. Because there's a lot of things which you can control, things like looking after yourself. There's a whole load of stuff that you can't. Your partner, they might break up with you. Your job may go wrong. Family members get ill. There's enough things in the world to throw stuff off course that when you aren't in a position where like you feel comfortable to talk about how you feel when things get tough, to the point that if you're looking at the future that you thought you're going to have, it looks like it's all going to go to pot, and you think, do you know what, I'm getting off the bus here. I don't like where this train's headed, I'm getting off here. I think it's really scary, and I think it's something that a lot of men have experienced. They set the bar really high. We all achieve somewhere towards it, but that what we miss can just dent us in such an irreparable way that we honestly feel it'd be better to just leave now, where I can't kind of underwhelm on my potential anymore. And it's nonsense.
And I think that,
my view.
No, and I agree. And I think what is like such a challenge, maybe more so for men, is that they don't feel they can talk about it. Because obviously men and women both go through the same thing in that period. But I know there's different arguments as to why it's the case, but I think generally it's probably agreed that men feel, or they take on this kind of image of like needing to be the breadwinner, needing to be strong, needing to not show weakness or emotion. So then these things do happen, and then because I was in that position as well. I think my suicidal thoughts were caused by my mental health issues. But that was I got to that point because I didn't talk about it. I know if I talked about things earlier, I wouldn't be having this chat with you today. I know that my suicidal thoughts came from the fact that I was trying to be someone that I didn't want to be. I was trying to be this man that society told me how to be, or my mates were telling me how to be, or whatever. and trying to be that is what made my issues worse and led to suicidal thoughts. So I think that's the real challenge is men try and be someone they're not to fit in, and actually it leaves them in a dark place.
We are pushed into that also, like going through school. If you are the football captain, you play, you're there, you're giving everything, you're the best, you're the man, and then you leave school, you play a bit of football, you do a bit of pub football, you're still good. Then you get to 30, you maybe have an injury, 34, and then you've got your wife and kids, and you're just sitting at home. You're not doing the thing you're good at. You're going to work, which you don't really like your job because you're focused on football, but you're just doing this job to make money. Maybe you're having problems at home and you're just bored, and you just lose who you are. You lose your passion as a man. You lose your your creative. You lose your manness. That's what you thought was, but really, just being yourself is what you should be. And I think that's the moment where men need to then realise I need to talk to someone about this because this is where I've lost this thing that gives me creation. And something that I try and do is to challenge myself in small challenges. I train for different things, do long runs, or I've been doing some charity events where I'm crawling on the floor or fall over, stand up. Just things to try and promote the idea that we all can all need to get help back up sort of thing, or just use it also giving me a chance to focus my brain on something and go, I've achieved that, I've done this achievement, and that makes me feel good. Because I did play a lot of sports at school. I don't play sports anymore, and there is a tendency to think, what am I doing? What am I doing in life? And then you start sitting there going, I'm not doing anything, but you forget you've got so much in you, so much stuff you can give and do. But if you just shout, I used to do that, was great, but now I'm not. You need to get back out there and start doing something else, and then that'll give you your passion back, and you'll feel more man. Or speak to someone.
Yeah, I think someone told me a great quote recently, and it was, the purpose of depression is to deepen us, and I was like, fuck, it hit me because it kind of what
you steal that.
It's like what you were kind of saying is that often things like, not always, but sometimes things like mental health issues can actually, it's like life trying to tell you that you've gone off course a little bit. And for me, it was I got to that state because I was trying to be someone I wasn't, or I was avoiding the things I wanted to do, or whatever. And I think actually for me it was it was life giving me a lesson of you need to do the things you want to do, and actually same as you, they were the best things that ever happened to me that period, because my life's completely changed from that. Literally the 26-year-old George I thought I was going to be is completely different to what I am. And it was depression that helped show me that and kind of get me back on the right path. So I think I say the same as you, that it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It's positive.
Because you don't know there's emotions, but you know those emotions now, and you understand those emotions, and you understand how not to go there, but you also understand how to beat it, and you also, if you did go, how to deal with it and come back out of it again. Because I feel in society it will happen to a lot of people in different parts. Maybe not when they're 18, no, it could be at different times, and we're going to all, maybe not, some people are going to have some downtime and depression that we know how to deal with it. We can come back out of it.
Yeah, I guess if there's, let's say there is someone watching now who maybe is struggling a little bit. Speaking from experience, have you got any? What would you say? How have you dealt with things? Or
from the things that help me currently, absolutely recommend going to your GP to talk through that as an option, just to understand whether or not that option works for you. It does work for me, but for others it doesn't always suit with their tablets, right? Going to get help to do talking therapy I found great. I'm very fortunate in the sense of I've got a guy who's just down the road from me, very convenient, but you can look for if you're in work, I'd imagine potentially, because it's on LinkedIn, check with your HR team whether you've got something provided as a benefit, or speak to Sanctus, amazing, if they're a benefit within the company. But probably the most crucial thing, if you're suffering with it, my recommendation would be to reach out to a few friends. It doesn't need to, the male and female thing, hopefully in time that'll become less of a thing. Just go to whoever you kind of trust, and whoever's just going to really listen to you, feel kind of open and honest, and know that things really do get better, and whatever it is, patience is the most crucial thing. So that'd be my recommendation.
I agree with that, and I can add to go into GP, check out, find someone to talk to, but also something that I found out was I had a blood test and I was low in vitamin D, which is the happy thing and whatever, and that I was getting a bit down. So check your bloods as well, maybe diet and stuff. Go and check with a GP. This can help. Also, search for, I think, mini goals. Try and don't look at long-term goals. Oh, I'm going to go there next year. That's great. Try and do weekly goals. Challenge yourself. Do something where you're actively thinking. I'm listening to a lot of podcasts. Jordan Peterson and stuff like this. These are motivational people. Anthony Robbins. Just the way they think, the way they talk. Just have a listen to them and have a listen how they speak, and start understanding your dialogue, inner dialogue, how you talk to yourself, how you talk to the world. But I think don't just sit there. Get out there, meet some people, open up. Don't be worried to speak to people, and give yourself a goal. Give yourself something that's very easy, very small, but every day you just think about a goal, and then every time you achieve that, it'll give you a nice little positive boost. And I think that's.
Yeah, I read somewhere. I think it was some army colonel or something said that.
Make your bed.
Yeah, just you only can only do one thing in a day.
Yeah.
Just make your bed, because you've then achieved something. And it's you can start from that, right? Which I think
Peter says the same. It's number one. Change. Make your bed.
Which I think is, if anyone's listening that hasn't suffered,
I haven't made my bed today.
Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. God damn, I need to make my bed. Dude.
It sounds so basic. I mean, I remember I heard that before I was ill, and I was like, well, you should make your bed. But then actually, when you're suffering, you realise that actually small wins like that can help.
It makes you, when you wake up, it's like you see a success. If you're having a bad day, you come home, but you look what I achieved this morning, and you get into a fresh bed.
Coming back to a fresh bed's lovely now, isn't it? Come on, that's simple pleasures.
Your days are ruined now.
It has ruined it. Yeah, first thing I do when I get back to the apartment tonight, made the bed and get in the bed. There you are.
Yeah, I think for me, talking was was the biggest thing. I think we have a habit, humans generally have a habit of building things up in their head to be bigger than they are, and catastrophizing, and I think often, although we know ourselves better than anyone else, sometimes we can't see the answers in ourselves that we need to see, and people that we talk to can objectively or rationally look in on the kind of fish bowling that we're doing, and just be like, have you thought about this or about this? And it can pull out a line of thinking that then really does change things. And I think once I started to talk, I felt like things got better for me from there. So there's still work to do, but it gave me more confidence to do the work. And I think you never know who's been through what and what stories people might have. I had a family friend who I really, really looked up to, really respected. He was running successful businesses, so I was like, he's obviously never had any issues. But then turned out he actually did, and he said, look, let's go for lunch and let's just talk about it. And he just talked through his whole story, and it was the exact same thing I was going through. He'd had suicidal thoughts, and I was like, but wait, you're really successful now. How? And he's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you've been through. Doesn't prohibit you in the future. So I think that one conversation really, really flipped things around for me. And from there, I always had more kind of energy and confidence to do the work on my mental health. So I think that's always been the biggest thing for me, and it's why I advocate it so much now.
I think it's interesting to say people like Robin Williams, comedic genius, actor, everything, but behind the scenes, who knew? And that's the thing, you don't know. You look at people and you think, oh, they're fine, but you don't know how they are behind. So opening up and talking to people, like you said, will give you, hang on a minute, I'm not on my own here. That's a big thing.
And I think it gives other people the permission to share. I think since I've been more vocal about mental health online, I feel like my friends talk to me a bit more about it, or they'll so casually drop into the conversation I don't want to do that, it makes me feel anxious. And then they just move on like nothing's been said. So I don't remember that being done at uni, and I just feel like
they're actually expressing their feelings.
Because they know that, listen, by me talking, they know that they can say it to me and there'll be no judgment there. So actually, by you talking, you don't know who else you're giving the permission to share their own story.
Yeah, I can agree with that more. If you're more open, and also, even if it's something that you're not experiencing, be kind, just be kind to people.
Cool.
Simple stuff.
Thanks, guys.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thanks for having us in for a chin wag. Lovely.
Round two next time.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Perfect, thanks. Super.
Cool.
Nice. Amazing.